Thus, it is one of the best for architecture students that can easily exchange ideas with each other.
The conclusion about the purpose of being an architecture student is to design our thinking ability and our creativity in building design and to improve human life, such as create a free and fun space for all activities in life.
Assalamualaikum. Baik, Pak Yohanes, apakah sudah bisa kita mulai?
Salam. Kedengaran?
Ya.
Thank you.
Oke. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Pak Yohanes, apakah it's 1 o'clock now according to Indonesia time, so the webinar is about to begin. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon. Let me introduce myself. My name is Efren Divya from Universitas Negeri Makassar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And I will be your host for today's webinar session. Welcome to our second session of the International Webinar Series with them perspective of researchers on traditional architecture in Asia study on Southeast Eastern Asia houses organized by Universitas Negeri Makassar and Universitas we welcome you and send my big gratitude to attend this webinar. I would like to thank you for this partnership. This webinar will last approximately about 3 hours with 2 training speakers. So please stay tuned until the end of this webinar. This webinar will be guided by Sir Johannes Firsal, PhD from Universitas Riau as a moderator of this webinar. Without any further ado, Sir Johannes, please, time is yours.
Thank you for the webinar. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Johannes Firzal. I come from University of Riau, Indonesia. Today we will continue the webinar series. Department Architecture University Negeri Makassar and University Tanjung Pura jointly organized this webinar series with the title "The Structural Perspective of Researcher to the Traditional Architecture in Asia," focus on a study on Southeast Asian Asia houses. For today, this is the second session of the series, the international webinar. We will have 3 speakers today. I will mention first. Our first speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Teh Zahri Zain from Tanjung Pura, Universitas Tanjung Pura, Indonesia. And the second speaker will be Professor Dr. Syekh Ahmad Iskandar Syekh Arifin from University Technology Malaysia. And the third speaker will be Architect Dr. Mastura Sra from University Kebangsaan Indonesia. Before we start this webinar, I would like to remind to all of us to turn on the video during the webinar, and also for all the ladies and gentlemen, the audience, to keep yourself mute during the seminar, and you will unmute when you need to ask or you have a chance to speak. So I don't want to take too long. So I will introduce to the first presenter. Mr. Zairin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Our first presenter will be Associate Professor Dr. Tezarin Zain. He is today a Associate Professor at Department Architecture Universitas Tanjung Priok, Indonesia. He got degree from TU Wien, Austria, I think. In his biography, I read about the published so many scientific articles, journals related to materials, indigenous traditional dwellings, about Malay house, also about the dwelling house. Uh, Dr. Zerin also writing about floating house conservations, identification on wooden structure, concept of space, dwelling as well, and comparative study on traditional architecture with many books, I think. Today, Dr. Tech Zairin is take a role as a Director of International Affairs Office at University Tanjung Pura since 2015. So, Dr. Zair, for Dr. Tech Zairin, I think the room is yours. You will have 20 to 30 minutes to present your title. Please, the room is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Firzal, for the time for me to present my work of research. Allow me to share my presentation. Is already shared?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. Okay, if I take as a full screen, it is fine also?
Okay, that's fine. Continue, please.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share my research. I take some activities in research about Malay architecture and also Dayak Longhouse. In today's presentation is I collect from some data on my research, on my trip to some area in West Kalimantan. This presentation will consist of some part. The first of all is about what is the traditional architecture in my opinion, and then I will show you about the traditional architecture in West Kalimantan, Malay architecture and longhouse architecture, and then I would like to share you about the comparison about the Malay architecture and longhouse architecture, especially in the one region in West Kalimantan in the regency of Sanggau, especially in the district of Tayan. Okay, let me begin with the presentation. Yeah, this picture is about the picture that I take from some area in West Kalimantan. This is the picture about this. This is the picture I taken in the Sambas Regency. In this picture, we saw that the appearance of a Malay longhouse is about responsibility of man toward his family. He can make a big house or small house, depending on his current status in the community. And as a part of that, they will also to make a feeling of secure and to feel a function of comfort, privacy, and the identity of themselves. This is the picture of Malay architecture in West Kalimantan. What is the variation in the architecture in traditional house? Sometimes they are make a adjustment to the environmental condition of the specific area. For example, Malay house usually have the influence of tides of the river, so they make adjustment on that. And then some they use a local material, structural system, and also a cultural identity that they put on the design of the house. And then they make a technical and knowledge through the natural selection of process to the building application. This is the picture show you that the different kind of design on the window. Both of them are in the Malay house. Why the traditional house in Indonesia always find to the fit to the environmental condition? Because they have to struggle to the environmental condition. They have a practical function that they learn by time to time, by generation to generation. For example, they make a stage house, a floor with gaps, huge window in doors. This is because of the environmental condition. For example, tropical climate and the environmental condition. And then they would like to cover the function of the activities. They need some place to store the daily needs, to do a ritual, to do a religious performance in their house. So they fit it on the house design. Some they make a adjustment with some natural environment control devices. For example, with window, with wall, or with the construction, with the structure. And then they usually use the local material that in their mind that local material can be easily to find, but in the other thing, the local material can fit to the environmental condition. They can choose what kind of material they can use to fit their needs and to fit the use of the function of the house. In Indonesia, you can find easily these three types of traditional house. Some are floating on the river, some are up from the ground, but some is on the ground. But currently, in traditional house in West Kalimantan, you only see these two type of picture. At the top, only a floating structure or with elevation from the ground. But and currently design of architecture you can find also in Pontianak or in West Kalimantan on the ground. But this is a modern kind of architecture in current need of house. What is the idea in the architecture? The idea of the entity in architecture is the novel and the essential component of the design work that recognize a specific character. So if I present this kind of architecture in West Kalimantan, it is recognized as the specific character of people in West Kalimantan. And the design characteristic become identities of the particular ethnicities in the area. In West Kalimantan, we can easily find some group of ethnicities, not only Malay, not only Dayak, but there's a Tionghoa also, there is a Bugis, there is some others ethnicities, Madura, Java, but they are in a small of communities. And the characteristic in the architect design reflect a piece of creation of community in the development of experience in a particular area. You can see in West Kalimantan also, if you meet to the design of Madurais or Java or Bugis, they have to to have inspiration from the traditional design of house in West Kalimantan. They put some adjustment by put the element on the design of their house. The design of house of Bugis, for example, or Maduris or other ethnicities. The architecture of traditional house in West Kalimantan, as I stated before, they decided according to the condition of surrounding environmental condition. The various entities of ethnies living together in the coastal area in the hinterland. Malays live in the coastal area in the settlement in the near of riverbank, and while the Dayak live inside of rainforest or the settlement near of creek banks. In Malay, in indigenous people terms, say that the Malay is in the opening of the West Kalimantan area, while the Dayak always mentioned as the orang dalam, or people in live in the more inside of the land. And then the design of structures is the adjustment of local to the environmental condition. As I will show you why the design of structure is very important for the adjustment of the local people. In the next slide of presentation. And in the same time, the design of structure is also clarify the needs of privacy, the needs of comfort, the needs of storage of possession, storage of preparation of food, shelter, or the safety to the environmental condition. For example, many people, many knows that the environmental condition in West Kalimantan still have found the attack from the wild animal, or for in the past maybe like attack from other ethnicities. So this kind of design of architecture, this kind of design of a house architecture is to protect, to make it secure for them from that obstacle. What the traditional doing? Traditional house in West Kalimantan. Traditional house in Kalimantan was established in the past kingdom. We call it a sultanate in West Kalimantan. West Kalimantan is a wide line, area. There we have a consists of 12 regency and cities, and the regency and cities was part of the Sultanate Kingdom in West Kalimantan. Here we can see that some area, there's a 12 area, Pontianak, Mempawah, Sambas, Landa, Sanggau, Sintang, Melawi, and other area, Ketapang, Sukadana. We can see the first kind of architecture in this area. In the first row, in the first column on the left is a kind of architecture in Pontianak. In the middle is architecture in Mempawah, and then on the right is the kind of architecture in Sambas. Here in Landa, and then the middle is in Tayan, and then the last in the right is in Sanggau. And then here in Sekadau, here in Sintang, here in Ketapang and Sukadana. Then, as I promised that I would like to give you a brief comparison about these two kinds of architecture. Before I give you the comparison, I would like to show you this map is about the location of my comparison. This is a Bindang village. Is the location of Longhouse, Dayak Longhouse. While the Kawat village is the location of Malay Longhouse, Malay house. What is the traditional dwelling, traditional house in West Kalimantan? Commonly, the river is main orientation, main location to set traditional architecture in West Kalimantan. They even for Malay, even for the Dayak Longhouse, they put the house on the river bank or the river creek. While in the Dayak, they usually put on the more in to the land. They usually try to find a forest. Sometimes the forest crossed by the small river, a creek banks. in the creek banks, while the most of the Malay house usually on the main river in West Kalimantan. This is the river in the Putu Sibau. Putu Sibau is almost 300 kilometers from Pontianak. If you use bus, you will take 18 hours to reach this area, while by airplane you can take 45 minutes by small airplane. This is the house division in Malay house. This floor plan I take from the Malayalam house, my house in other area of West Kalimantan, but this is in Sambas. They usually consist of two main house, two house, main house and a support house, or in Malaysia say rumah rumah ibu dan rumah bujang atau rumah anak, can be confirmed by Professor Shed or Dr. Master. This structure divided and connected by like a pelataran. What is the function of the room in each in this Malay house? Before I state about the function of the house, usually in West Kalimantan they recognize the traditional house into three kind of type of house. This they call it potong. Potong is mean type, but except these three type of traditional house, they also have a one type rumah lanting, that floating on the river. This kind of houses is a landed house with elevation from the ground. This room composition is typically similar, but the grid of the structure is quite different, but with the same room organization. The function of each room is as follow. The veranda or serambi depan in Indonesian language, situated in the front of the building, specially function for a guest greeting room before entering the house. Sometimes for the people, for the male guest can be entering this area and then knocking the door of the middle serambi or a guest room. With the odd ladder on the middle, sometimes usually in the middle of the house. And then the guest room and the middle house, as Serambi Tengah is situated here in the two here. Usually you can find easily with three door openings here, but in the small one usually will have one door opening. Sometimes this to serve guests from female guests easily with the kind of furniture inside. Sometimes they with the carpet on the floor, and then this area also has a function for the female location in the traditional ceremonies, akikah, or selamatan, or akad nikah, and so forth. And then the living room in Serambi belakang. It consists of a semi-private room. You can see here they put here in the middle in the potong limas, but some other can be found in the rear one, the rear side. But usually they put side by side. So the sleeping room here and the living room is on the opposite of that. Usually they remind to have to put things on the right. So this is a common norma for the design also. And the kitchen or rumah anak support house in the on the back part of the house, and with the connecting by the pelataran open platform. Open platform is also different to the this platform. Open platform is part of the support house. Usually they put on the right, on the left, or in the back of the house. And the front plataran also come sometimes found in this traditional house of Malay. The attic. The attic of the Malay house is on the top of the house, under the roof. The structure between selling to the selling of the house. The selling usually made by the wooden structure. So the floor can be stepped by the people, usually girls and women at the time, in the past. Usually they use for the place to hide from the male or non-mahram male, and or they want to take time for doing weaving or knitting or sleeving, but currently unused place because of the condition of the structure. This is the elevation section of the house. You can see that sometimes, usually, they use a pile, tongkat, down to the ground, and then they put a layer on in the middle as the structure for the room space, and then they put a structure on the top as the roof structure. Sometimes we can usually find the house ranging from the elevation from the ground from 1.1 meters to 3.5 meters. It's according to the, it's depend on the location of the house. Sometimes in the upstream is more higher, and then to the downstream is more lower. And then the main idea of the Malay house is the different level of elevation on the superstructure, on the main house and the support house. Main house more higher than support house. They give elevation from the floor elevation in between around 30 or 40 centimeters from each other. It is the structure you can find. This is my finding when I see the structure on the Malay house. In current excavation to the traditional house in West Kalimantan, in Pontianak, they put also the structure like here. There is another kind of construction in the foundation. Usually use the pile is similar. They use a belian wood for the foundation, but the difference is found with the pads. The pads is sometimes you can find as a local pads, but sometimes you can find the pads like continuous pad. So with a huge log of wood in both sides, and then this can be on the converse or longitudinal direction. This is the room space composition and the building mass. This is the room composition in the Malay. As I say, they can be a row of sleeping room, and then the living room. They like a serambi belakang, and then the support house. This is the different to the Dayak Longhouse. This is the Dayak Longhouse in Putusibau, Iban Longhouse. They have they call as I forgot the name. like pendopo in the front, and then screening to the I forgot the name also, and then the drive the the ladder to the longhouse. But you can see the different in the design of longhouse in Bindang village in the next presentation. The orientation is also quite uh, important. Uh, this is the common transportation in across of West Kalimantan. People uh, passing the river, going to one place to another place. This is the longhouse that I observed in Putusibau. They put the longhouse in the river bank of Kapuas River, small Kapuas River. This is my picture on the 2020 or 2010. I said, if I remember. This is the construction. They put the elevation from the ground, especially the elevation according to their their experience about the river tides. Usually, you can see this the river the flood from the river not reach the floor elevation, floor structure. You can see this. It is still have some room for people to step in if you want to. And they put a ladder or steps from the or is it from the grata to their house, so they can still in the dry condition to into the house. But sometimes they can pass the flooding and going inside to the house. This is Dayak in Kalimantan. Uh, uh, some area of West Kalimantan have Iban ethnics. Some is have a Kalimantan ethnic. Some is Ordanum ethnics, and some with Ngaju. So you can find the similarities to the longhouse design in East Kalimantan, in Central Kalimantan, or in West South Kalimantan, because
5 minutes, 5 minutes, Dr. Zairin, please.
okay, this is the structure of the longhouse, and then this is the how they construct the structure of the longhouse and their orientation to the river, sometimes to the mountain or small mountain. This is the structure. You can see the difference. There is a consists of row of a structure, and while in Malay much simple than the structure. And then the roof construction also different, but the thing is they want to have a air circulation, cross air structure from the ground to the top, from the side to the side of the house. This is the condition of the construction. They have a door, huge door, but in the with a small door or window, and open the door is also with a difference in the structure. They put like a row of logs as the structure for the wall in the public space, while in the private space they put a more tight wooden board to cover their rooms. This is the structure and construction. They use ballion wood, mabang, or sometimes they use another type of wood. But you can see here the floor is with the gap to allow airflow, to allow dust strike to the ground when people step on it. what are the identities, the different living make them different to adjusting their needs of environmental condition and particular dominate cultures, and the identity and of the surrounding environment and the particular dominate cultures show the observers on the distinctive features of house between Malay and Dayak. Distinctive features of Malay and Dayak house make the identities different to Dayak as association, and but equivalent of both culture is also the similarity in some element. This is the traditional Tayan Malay house. You can see, as I stated before, it is a similar. The building loads a wooden bed, a continuous sectional, or placed at certain distance. This is similar is my previous presentation slide of presentation. The accommodation of women or Bali girls room division with wall and opening with designed to avoid the sight of non-mahram observers. The construction of war system in the main house was used close connection with the even in main house or super house. While in super house you can find the superimposed more tight wooden board system to avoid the side of observers to their activities inside.
1
And
minute.
yeah, still I think I need more 3 minutes more.
Okay.
Okay. This is the floor structure. You can see with the gap on it, and then the roof element also enhance the structural identity without with the small post and beam structure system. So this is a commonly found in the traditional architecture in West Kalimantan. A huge mass of structure will also good give room for space underneath. As I said, was and beam, and then tenon and mortise joint is also the main idea of a joint in there. While in the Dayak longhouse is common found, they use some species of wood with more higher pillars, piles from the ground to the top. The division of pile make a division of every compartment, but bilik on the longhouse. And then they make a division on inside as a tengah ambe padong dapok matang with the floor different floor elevation, and they put gap on the board to allow air flow. And this is the house floor elevation on, and they put a more what is it a more slope on the wall in the public room and the private room. This is the condition on in the inside. They put they use a roof system to give a light into the room, and they give like a structure. They can pull out this one. They can pull out. They can make air coming into the room. This is about the main reason they put identity on their house as for the head of the house. This is the conclusion. The identity is a traditional the traditional system, wooden board with gap, wooden lock with gap for the longhouse, simple beam, simple system, simple bonding system adjustment to give to gain a compatibility inside the house. Yeah, the use of wooden material to have a low heat temperature, cross ventilation, anticipation of flooding, wild animal, or other religion of respective ethnicities. The influence of faith and the culture make differences between those two traditional Malay house to the long house. The structure, the architectural appearance, so quite different for the observers. I think that's all of my presentation. Is too long with the 45 slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Zain. Yeah, it's quite 35 minutes, quite long. So
Moment.
we
I
can
have
continue to. Could you stop the share screen?
yeah.
Okay, we will continue to the second presenter, which is Professor Dr. Syed Ahmed Iskandar bin Syed Arifin. He's from University Technology Malaysia. Professor, are you still there? Professor Syed, okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Before I give the room to the professor, I would like to read a very brief CV of Professor. Professor Dr. Syed Ahmad Iskandar bin Syed Arifin. He is a professor in Department of Architecture, UTM, Johor Bahru, Malaysia. Got doctorate from UK. He is founder and first director of Kalam, UTM. He's very famous, I think. And also he developed and published a manual accreditation of architecture program for Malaysia, and also write some books related to the conservation. Professor also have served in National Heritage Department for the past 10 years. Today, Professor Syed Ahmad Iskandar Irvin is Executive Director of Institute Sultan Iskandar, UTM. Is it? Oh, that's quite long. Uh, Briefly. Okay, Professor. I think the room is yours. Please, you can present no more than 20 to 35 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I believe somebody uploading the slides. The host.
Host, could you help to upload the professor
Yes.
slides, please? Okay.
Sorry.
Could you upload the material of professor from Professor Syed?
Okay. I'll search it.
So while we're waiting, I just to remind again that all the question, all the inquiry you can put in the chat room, and we will answer by presenters by the end of the present after the third presenter. So still waiting.
I'm sorry, sir. I confirm that we didn't receive any material from.
Oh,
I can share.
Dr. Zain, Dr. Zain,
I can
maybe you
share
can
it
help.
with the
Yes.
PDF from
Okay, thank you, Dr. Zain.
yeah. Just wait. It is take time to downloading it. Please wait.
Professor said will present this title with gender harmony in building traditional. Well, this
in
is
Malay,
in Malay or in
building
Malay
tradition.
or building tradition. They give me a not precise title here. Sorry, Professor. I think it's very interesting because we're talking about the
Yes.
mother here. You can about the house, but the woman, something that's related to everyone here.
Yeah, still need time to downloading the file because the file is huge. It is in progress
Okay.
on to downloading it. Please be patient.
Okay.
Dr. Abid have the presentation, right? Have you
Another host, Dr. Abida. Do you have the PDF or PowerPoint of Professor?
yeah.
Okay, Dr. Zarin.
Not yet because I don't know if there's a connection problem. It's still loading, but not yet download. Maybe Dr. Abida, can you hear me?
Dr. Abida, could you help us? You still unmute there.
Yeah, hello. Pak Yohanes?
We have my
Do you have the material from Professor Syed
I don't
to
have.
assist us? Wow.
really moment. I
Mr.
will share
Syed,
it to you. Maybe I forgot. Yes. I will share it to you. I'm sorry. I forgot to share the presentation to you.
Mhm. Oh,
could
this
you
happened.
send?
Okay, we already have a question in the chat room, in the chat for inquiry. Well, for everyone who want to uh, just pay a question or any issue in there. So later the host will compile and we will ask to the presenter after the third presentation. So we already got 2 questions. It's still about mantan.
Okay, I already have the
Okay, yeah, please you share. Okay, Professor said you can start after Dr. Zahrin.
Okay, thank you.
okay. I tried to where is it? Okay, here. Can see the picture? Okay. This is the I tried to make
Yes.
Okay.
okay here the presentation.
Okay. Are you doing it full screen?
Or I try to open with the
Uh,
video. Let me
full screen. Maybe you can full screen.
yes,
Okay.
no problem.
Auzubillahi minasyaitonirrajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Salam sejahtera. Selamat siang rakan-rakan di Indonesia dan juga di Malaysia, and to international audience as well. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation for the invitation to this webinar series jointly organized by Universitas Tanjung Pura and Universitas Negeri Makassar. It's a very interesting theme. We look forward to have a discussion later in the session. I have given the title for my presentation, Gender Harmony in Malay Building Tradition. I have presented this topic somewhere in 2017 during the UIA summit in Korea. I think Professor Himasari Hanan also was there with me. Since that most of the audience are international audience, and since then I have not had the opportunity to share with our regional audience, particularly in the Malay world and the Nusantara. So today I look forward to share with you some of my thoughts on Malay building tradition, looking from the gender aspect. I'm focusing obviously from the woman perspective. A lot has been said about men as far as the architecture of the vernacular society. But most of the scholars are silent in the role of women in house building. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Prof. Zahri. Dr. Zahri.
I try to move it.
Okay.
How to move it?
Just scroll. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I quote from Paul Oliver, the editors of the Encyclopedia Vernacular Architecture of the World. he said here, I believe that the study and conservation of vernacular traditions and the abilities necessary to sustain them is fundamental to the housing of millions in the 21st century. By then, the population of Indian subcontinent alone will be approaching 1 billion people, of whom as many as 95% will be living in vernacular buildings. Mass housing is rarely successful and always wasteful of skills, knowledge, and motivation. The solution to the world's housing demands will only be met, I believe, according to Paul Oliver, in the forthcoming century through the support, enhancement, and adequate servicing of vernacular architecture. So in this quotation, Paul Oliver uh, put a greater hope to vernacular architecture, meaning that vernacular architecture is not about the past, but it's also about the present as well as the future. Next slide, please. In that context, make me think about what is the present and the future. If we look at traditional houses, vernacular houses of the past, the greater emphasis is about personalization. In the case of Malay houses in Peninsular Malaysia, individual family live in an individual unit of house. So very personalized. None of the house are the same. But if you compare to the modern housing, especially mass housing, there's no personalization. It's about generalization. Everybody having the same type of houses to live in. So we are actually depart from what used to be a very personalized dwelling place to a very generalized dwelling place. So somehow the modern and the tradition is expressing it is itself in a diverse polar, one to the left, one to the right. I believe a compromise need to be struck so that we must find something, a desirable compromise between personalization and generalization. Somewhere in between can help solve the needs for housing in the modern context. Okay, next slide. In view of that, I would like to invite everybody to look back into the vernacular architecture of the past, the tradition. And one aspect, of course, there are so many aspects, but one aspect that I would like to bring today is about dualism in Malay culture. And in many culture of the Nusantara, I'm sure dualism existed. If we look at the Malay proverbs, bidalan kata or peribahasa, Malay proverb, represented through objects and images, and the most commonly in Malay culture is padi lalang. You know, the behavior of padi in lalang. Padi, when it is ripe, is bending down, but lalang with nothing in it is stand arrogantly. So behave like padi, not like lalang. So you have many of these cempedak nangka, comparison, asam garam, aul tebing, buku, and ruas, and ubi gadung. The meaning and message portrayed by the proverb usually varied to serve as a cautious reminder to us, a form of advice to avoid mixing between good and bad elements. These are all local wisdom, a guide for one to be grateful with things that one already had and complementing role between the two elements. This form of dualism captures and delivers the concept, values, or lesson from two opposing facts of principle and the relationship between the two. Next slide, please. Now let's look into dualism in traditional Malay architecture. In traditional Malay architecture, there are also dualism being applied, but most of it are for practical reason. So, nevertheless, they indicate the practice of dualism, such as depan belakang, kiri kanan, left right, jantan betina, male female, kepala ekor, head tail, and hujung pangkal, top end and bottom end. A timber column is always set in place with the pangkal side being positioned at the bottom and its hujung at the top. As in the concept of kepala ekor, head tail, the front of a house is also understood as the head and the rear of the house is the tail. Usually, anything that is being identified the head would naturally be treated with utmost care and respect. The house front is where the personality of house owner is elegantly displayed. Next slide. Now I'm going into the traditional Malay houses, the subject in focus for the topic today. Um, a house is fundamental to the making of what we call home. Traditionally, a home may be defined as the place where a person is born, growing up, getting married, manage a family, becomes old, and finally died gracefully. It is a living space and territory within which a complete cycle of lives takes place. You are referring to a home. The attitude of the vernacular society is fundamentally laid on the will to decide and the freedom to choose. In other words, the right of being an innate person. Their appreciation of the present is one that of a continuous equilibrium to that of the past and the future. Hence, the houses that they build often form a nonverbal story of a person and his family living adventure. Degree of participation in the process of house building is highly intense. So a house, a home is not only a physical entity, but it's also about spiritual and emotional entity. Next slide. Quickly going through some of the samples or example of the houses in the Peninsula Malaysia, the one up north on the East Coast and the Southwest. Okay, next slide. Some drawings about it, even though they are dealing with people of the same culture of the Malay, but there are variation of ethnics and variation of regions. Next slide. Some diagram showing additivity, how the building is extended from a small unit to the larger unit, evolved through times. Next slide. And variation of that according to the region. This is in the region from Negeri Sembilan. Next slide. This is from the region up north in Perak. Next slide. And this is close to my states in Johor, southern region. Okay, these are the earliest image that we can trace showing the Malay house. You can see from this picture, basically no metal at all. All of them are vegetal elements from the rooftop until the ground. Next. Similar to this one also, a vegetal architecture, very organic. Next. This is the space of the Serambi from inside looking out. In this case, this house, from the non-verbal communication, you know that the house is owned by a person who is socially active, leader of the community. That's the reason why the Serambi is very widely open. Basically, the walls of the Serambi space is made of windows or openings or jendela. This is the elevation of the front elevation and side elevation of a simple Malay house, traditional Malay house. Next slide. And the plan. You can see the serambi at the front, at the bottom of the slides, and rumah ibu at the center of it, and at the back is the dapur or the kitchen. A typical layout of a basic Malay house. Next slide. Dr. Zairin probably want to erase the box.
I tend to erase how to erase this.
Okay, there you are. Okay, I arrange a different type of houses from different region, and you can see the typical layout, the similar layout, the relationship between serambi, rumah ibu, and the dapur. This, you can see it widely practiced throughout the Peninsula Malaysia. Not always the case, but this is the most common. Next. Next slide. The slide. Is this the next slide?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In the case of Malay house, this is also common to the culture within the Southeast Asia, Malay archipelago or Nusantara region, the relationship of a house and the person, the anthropometric relationship between human figures and the house. So the same similar practice is applied in the Malay house as well. So in that regards, in this instant, the man, and the person who constructing the house is the tukang, the craftsman. Next. Okay, now the following parts are basically focusing on women. The role of women in Malay house building. The concept of dualism encapsulated in the relationship between man and woman, lelaki, wanita, as similarly embedded in suami, istri, and ayah, ibu. In the context, you remember earlier I mentioned about a house is not just a physical manifestation, it's also is about the life itself, the life of these two couple, the family units. In the within the Peninsula Malaysia. In the case of house building, the house owner appoints the tukang, the craftsman, to build a house for them. The tukang is mandated to construct the house according to agreed terms. Yet the biometric units of measurement were obtained from the istri or wife or mother of the household. This presentation, the following slide, will go further into other woman-centric factors affecting the way the Malay houses were built. It will highlight the points that woman was equally significant in house building tradition, a fact that often neglected in most cases where only the role of tukang was being mentioned. Next slide. Saya kira di Indonesia pun dipanggil burung tempur ya. Yeah. The weaver or burung tempur or tempur, the architects of the nest for tempur is the male, but they together construct the house. Later, somewhere halfway, the female will come and join to help build the nest. So you can see here that Mother Nature taught us that to build a home for the baby birds, the fetus of the birds, where the birds laying eggs, you need 2%, the male and female, to help with the nesting. Weaver, by the way, is said to be the best designer of bird nests. women in Malay house building tradition. I will now highlight to you 5 elements that is woman-centric in Malay house building tradition, beginning with the rumah ibu, second, units of measurement, third, female-dominated spaces, and then floor mat module and the atap roofing sheet. Let's go to the next slide. This is the floor plan, the rumah ibu at the center, highlighted by the blue box. The first that the tukang will build is the rumah ibu. And the tiang seri, or the naval post, is located somewhere at the middle of the rumah ibu. It is called ibu because it is the nucleus. It is the beginnings. It is the initiation. Similarly, in other terms in Malay language, we use ibu to refer to the beginnings, the starting points, such as ibu roti, the beginning of things. So this is the dedication that the Malay culture gives to women. Throughout my 30 plus years of exposure to the vernacular architecture, I have not heard rumah bapa. I only heard rumah ibu. And this is the first facts, we must accept that. And then the rumah ibu at the center is for the ibu. The man stays at the serambi, not at the rumah ibu. Okay, that is number one. Very simple facts. Whether the man likes it or not, they must accept it. Factors number 2, women as primary source of units of measure. The tukang will measure the arm spans of the mother of the house or the wife of the household and get the unit biometric measurement from her and use that to measure, to apply to the measurement of the house building, whether using a piece of string or a rattan strip, and they will subdivide that according to make it into smaller unit, the haster or the fingers, the width of the fingers, also the jengkal. Okay, this another dedication given to women. They don't, you know why? Because women stay in the house most of the time compared to men. It will be not good for men to stay in the house, especially during daytime. The men's supposed to be out there looking for to better their living, going hunting or going to river, get the fish, fishing at the ocean, but not staying at home. So the house actually designed for women much more than men. So factor number 3, female dominated. If you look at the spaces, 70 to 80% of the spaces in the house are reserved for women, from the rumah ibu to the dapur to the kitchen are actually woman dominated. Men, especially bachelor, will stay in the serambi. They will stay there during daytime for a rest or even sleep at night time. So only 20 to 30%. So the house is dominated by female. This is also a simple fact. These are the human-centered unit of measure that we use the standard measurement based on the standard height or average height, 1.6 meter of the Malay person during those time. Next. And these are the unit of measure that being developed from the arm span, the depth of the woman or lady of the house. Next. Then there are elements in the house construction where women also participated quite intensely, but goes unnoticed by others because the tukang is actually being seen as the architects of the building. Next slide. There are two aspects. I have presented three, another two. Factor number 4 is the floor mat. During Kenduri or the festive, when the villagers are invited to the house, the way the Serambi is being designed, long and narrow, people will be seated based on a 4% per unit, per tray. I have traced the use of 4% unit per tray. It goes back to as early as during the Sultanate of Malacca. Is being recorded in the Malay Annal or Sejarah Melayu. So this 4% and the size of dulang seems to be consistent throughout the history. So if you use the anthropometric and ergonomics and make the arrangement, that will give you the size of the floor mat. So the dish, the plates, next slide. The dish, the plates, and the tray, the rounded shaped tray, those shape the module of floor space according to the dining tray. And all these things with the meal being cooked are coming from the kitchen, prepared by the woman, and also the serving and the plates are all by women. And most interestingly, the floor mats, the size of the floor mats itself being designed and woven by women. So the woman set the size, and the size shape also interchangeably set the module of the tray, and the household tools and instrument, utensil shape also the floor space module influenced by the dining tray. So to me, this is a very powerful influence. In silent, the woman actually influence. As a result of this, the arrangement, can go to the next slide. The arrangement of during the dining is a long 4% unit and arranged as a linear things, occupy the space of the Serambi. Next slide. So you can see the Serambi. These are the collection of dimension or proportion of all the Serambi that I can collect in Peninsular Malaysia. They are always long and narrow like that. It's actually designed easy for you to, one of it, to organize the meal, to serve the meal during the festive. So the plate, the tray, the 4% tray module, and the floor mat influence the dimensioning of the Serambi space. Next. Okay. So how much time do I have? Factor number 5. This is the last one. Sorry?
About 5 minutes more, Prof.
Okay. I think I'm on time. Factor number 5. This is the last one. The atap, the roof covering sheets made of nipah or many types of leaves Nipah or Rumbia. But in this case, in the illustration here, referring to Nipah, the length of the Nipah is actually one arm span, satu depa, with a jengkal, one stretch of between your index finger and your thumb, about that long. So that is the length of the atap. Women produce the atap. They woven the atap, make it into long piece, the size of 1.8 to 2 meter, within that range. And the tukang placed the order, or the house owner placed the order to this lady who produced the atap. So when this atap come into that size, into that modules, then the next slide will show you, the next slide will show you the arrangement of the atap. There is overlap between each module, and that module set the position of the rafter, of the roof, meaning that the tukang must arrange the roof structure according to the sizes, the module of the atap. So in this situation, I ask myself, who influenced who? The tukang, which is man, the house builder, influenced the atap maker, or the atap maker influenced the roof structure? So this goes unnoticed only after I highlighted this matter. So in this case, it's very powerful influence. The material influence the roof structure, and therefore the position of the structure grid. You can actually say that to build a house, the width of the house is influenced by how many units of the atap. If 5 or is 6, then the tukang will calculate the width of the house. Next. When I see these slides, I'm arriving somewhere at the end. So antara sarang dan sangkar, I show earlier on the bird nest, the tempur, the weaver. That is called sarang. I think in Indonesia probably the same words as well. Sarang. On your right is beautifully crafted by craftsmen. That is called sangka. On your left, a nest is organically constructed with love and care. I mentioned earlier the couple, the male and female tempur, fits for the occupant, designed to fit them. But in the case of the cage, sangka, no matter how beautiful it is made for the unwilling occupant. If I were you, I prefer to live in the nest, not in the cage. A house that is built taking the consideration of both male and female, will give harmony to the architecture of the house. Next slide, the conclusion. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have presented to you the 5 female-dominated factors that contributed to the architecture of traditional Malay houses. Building a dwelling place to raise a family always adopted a balanced approach, tapping the roles and responsibilities between men and women of the house. Thus far, man has always been portrayed as the sole agent of house building. The facts about the role of women in house building are largely not being discussed. This presentation highlighted to you the significant role women had in the Malay house building tradition. It is also worth noting that in Malay culture, And in most circumstances, men and women are at every time complementary in their roles, even at a point where one thought the task is of male-dominated, such as house building. They are indeed building a true dwelling place, a sarang of love for a blissful living. With that, I thank you for your attention. Wabillahi taufiq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Professor Shed. Well, a lot of we learn from the material about the woman. So we will continue to our third presenter. I would like to read a brief CV. Our third presenter name is Architect Dr. Masto Surah. He got he got a degree from UKM and also with many titles here. Is also fellow at Serambi UKM. Dr. Master Surah also part of science research on green technology, architecture, and heritage. Dr. Master Surah also having a lot of prestigious awards in various fields, actually, including architecture awards. Apart of conducting research and presentation and writing in academic reports, Dr. Masura also doing very interesting field related to Malay Martial oscillats. So today, Dr. Masura will giving us or share about the application of vernacular Malay house principles for development of contemporary local architecture identity. So please, from Architect Dr. Master Surat, room is yours.
Thank you, Bapak Yohanes Faizal.
Sama.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lahu wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Bapak Yohanes selaku moderator for our session, Bapak panel yang sangat hebat, Dr. Zairin and Dr. Said Iskandar, they have presented their paper, very good papers. I got a lot of things today. So all the participants, thank you very much for supporting us because as usual, not many people really interested on this topic with regard to the vernacular Malay architecture. The modern people, they more like on the technologies and not for the vernacular type one. Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank also the organizer for inviting me to share my research finding and also what I'm doing. I want to share what I'm doing for the last maybe 30 years of my study about vernacular Malay architecture. Okay, you see my slide, Mr. Boleh, You can see my slide. Okay.
Yes.
This slide actually is very much inspired me to be a good architect because I have great job to be done actually to the people, and scaring me also, Okay. Hassan Pati is my one of my favorite architect. Why? Because all of his work, they do have the people. According to him, the most beautiful house, the first beautiful architecture is the pioneerless, meaning that the most beautiful house is the low cost house, according to him. I'm also, Hassan Pati also inspired me a lot on practicing my architecture. Yeah. So architect actually, this is my style. I'm a drawing board person, not like the current people. Very good in computer, but I'm still having my drawing board. Yeah. But want to share here. Usually, the real practice. Yeah. The last best idea usually going to the little bin. This is always, yeah. This is always, okay. Just to share with you, okay. I done my research about the vernacular Malay architecture since 1982 actually, 1982. Quite long time, yeah. Now currently, I'm doing a lot of more on it's not only the vernacular. I'm going for the ancient Malay architecture. Yeah, I'm going for the ancient one. Okay, so my my research is a type of qualitative. Yeah, I'm using the approach of anthology and anthology and epistemology approach. Yeah? Then I learned how to read all those symbols, semiotic, and to translate all those symbols or hermeneutic. Yeah? Then currently I'm looking a lot on the symbols actually, on the Malay architecture, a lot of meaning that we can abstract for all the symbols and that are given through the vernacular Malay architecture. Yeah. Okay. So I want to share with you before I proceed further. I'm to share with you about the crisis, the architecture crisis, the real architecture crisis here. For almost 2,000 years within the traditional era, people all over the globe developing their architecture and built environment by following suit with their culture, considering climate and environment and compiling their religion and obligation. So the outcome is very good. We can see, yeah, even though Chinese, Indian, Malay, the Aborigine people, Dayak, and so on, yeah, we can see very, very good and very pleasant with the living and very good in appearance. Yeah. Okay. Because you can see from the left side and the right side of the architecture. Yeah. This is very two different things. Very two different things. Yeah. Looking at the vernacular one, I think we're missing a lot. Currently, this kind of architecture, the vernacular architecture is reducing in the numbers. Yeah, we're going to miss a lot of this actually. So I like to the statement of Bapak Antarikso Sudikno. Yeah, what he said, isu pembunuhan seni bina warisan bermaksud satu pembunuhan identiti bangsa. Yeah, this is architectural suicide. So this is very serious actually. Yeah. Okay. This is what I'm thinking actually. And maybe different people, they have different opinion. Yeah? The rise of modern era has made modern people ignore the value of human as mankind, climate and environment as nature, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the entire creator. Yeah. Okay. This is what was happened. This is what was happened now. Yeah. Everybody now thinking with only one world order. Previously, every people at every region, they design their house, their architecture, following suit with their environment, with their climate, with their culture. But after a certain era, yeah, they call it modern era. Now, all the people, the architects mostly, they design everywhere look the same. Yeah, okay. So this is maybe why Frank Gehry said the most modern architecture is purely shade. Yeah. So he really disagree with the development of the modern architecture. Yeah. Okay. This is can be seen everywhere. The failure of the modern architecture. Yeah. Why? Modern architecture cannot stand for the uh, the disaster. Yeah. Flooding, quake, etc. Yeah. This is the impact of the modern life, modern living. Yeah. Everywhere people ignore the environment. Yeah, because they are thinking a lot of about the machine, computer, robotic, artificial intelligence, etc. Yeah, they don't care anymore with the environment. So according to Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation headquarters in Taiwan, what they said, most of architecture uh, doesn't concern human as a consumer. So that's why a lot of architecture being failed. Yeah. Okay. I think within the 30 minutes that given to me, I have a lot of slide actually to be shared. Yeah. But Mr. Moderator, I'm allowing the participant to have copy of my slides. Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think I can read all my slides. I have 260 slides to be shared. Yeah, but I will skip a lot of my slides. Yeah,
Okay.
I will skip a lot of my slides. You see, this is the current architecture in Malaysia. I like this statement by Spiro Kostov. Architecture is something that related to culture. For those buildings do not referring to culture, it cannot be called as architecture. It's just merely a building. This is what was happened in our country, in Malaysia. Yeah. Sometimes I don't understand why the architects is thinking like this. Yeah. Okay. Similar to this. Yeah. Similar to this, the Malays, they want to build a mosque, but look like a temple. So this is what I call it crisis. Yeah. So just like this building, the name of the building is Malay, but the character, the look like of the building is not like a Malay. Yeah. Okay. So similar to this, modern architecture denying the identity of our Aboriginal people, orang asli. So that's why you can say the Aboriginal people, the orang asli, they build their annex house. Then they abandon the house that given to them. Yeah. Then what happened during the daytime? They mingle at the house of the outside the house. Yeah, this is very serious actually. This is happen in our country. Yeah. Okay. I have shared actually all those Kamalot, all the crises in my books. Yeah. So these the topics that I'm going to share, but I don't think it will be completed as part as what I shared the slide. Yeah. Okay. So I want to share also the meaning of architecture according to Isham Ilma Al-Bakri. This is especially for the architect to be the students. Yeah. Okay. Architecture is a result of formation of community in progress. Naturally, it's a result of life experience and reflect of the life of a community. Architecture shape is the result of the influence of the way of daily life, belief, culture, history, environment, and technical abilities. Construction method are influenced by the environment condition and use local ingredient. In general, historical architecture is consist with the history of the community. This is what Iqbal Hisham Al-Bakri has said in one of his writing. Yeah. Okay. So to me, architecture is often associated with the development of culture. Culture is something that is progress and not shift or imitation. So that the architecture also need to be show progress and not shift or imitation. Yeah. So according to Paul Rudolph, architecture is one of man's highest achievement reflecting the culture of the time. You see the progress of human thinking. Yeah? They will develop the different kind of architecture to suit with their culture, the environment, etc. Yeah. Okay. So according to Vitruvius, what he said, the classical architecture refer by regional architecture. So what he said, the arrangement of buildings should be guided by locality and the climate. So this is, many people, they forgot about this. So that's why they intend to imitate the architecture. Yeah? Okay. So to me, vernacular architecture always governed by four main factors: the microclimate, local environment, culture of community, and the genius loci. Yeah. Okay. So when we talk about Malay civilization, of course, because we are talking about vernacular Malay architecture, we should know who are the Malays. Yeah, I have long slide actually, but I'm going to skip of this. I'm going to skip of this because there will be a lot of time. Okay. According to Perlembagaan Malaysia, our constitution, Malays, because we are talking about Malays, whoever Muslim, then they practice adat budaya Melayu, they can speak Malay or Sanskrit, we call it, other than, actually bahasa Melayu is developed from Sanskrit language, and keturunan Melayu. So this is a Malay. Whoever Muslim, then they speak Malay, they practice the Malay custom, then here we can call them Malays. Yeah, this is as per our perlembagaan. Okay. Okay. Malay. The word Malays. The word Malays. The first, the oldest scripts that can be found written by Claudius Ptolemy. Yeah. In his maps, it is stated that Malayu Tolun, meaning that the word Malayu been recognized by the people since the early century. Yeah? Okay. Then the conception of Malay as a race also, this is quite impressed me also. Yeah. Blumenbach, according to him, according to Blumenbach, the Malay race belong to those of a brown color. Yeah. Who people have a brown color scheme, they can consider as a Malay, according to Blumenbach. Yeah? But I'm referring also to the son of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, Yafid, Ham, and Sham. So I try to merge whether the origin of the current people are referring to the descendant of Nabi Nuh alayhi salam. Okay. Okay, Sanskrit language actually we are talking. The Malay language actually is derived from Sanskrit. Then before that, the name is Suryani. Yeah. Okay, we need to understand this because a lot of things when we agree to accept that Malay language is also derived from Sanskrit. Sanskrit language was derived from Suryani language. So a lot of things we can discover from that. Yeah. Okay. In our region, we have this is talking about our environment, climate and environment. Yeah. The relation between bulan purnama, air pasang keling, keling karam, banjir, rumah lantai berpanggung on state construction. So I'm not very sure whether in Indonesia you heard about this keling karam. Mr. Moderator, is it any word like this, keling.
In some region, yes, it is, but not all Indonesians.
What you understand, Mr. Johannes? What is keling in Indonesia?
In some sense, they're looking for the black one, very dark, something like that, or something dangerous. In some regions, say that, but I don't know with the Malaysian style, to be honest.
Actually, as stated in our dictionary, keling means a ship, a boat. Yeah? So that's why keling karam, the sunken of boat. Yeah? So I wrote this in one journal in UKM. Yeah? So I'm quite impressed also with this statement in the Al-Quran Surah Al-An'am ayat 6, which Allah Ta'ala did mention about the earlier civilization of the people who built their house on steel. This is quite impressed me. This is really impressed me. Allah Ta'ala did mention about the earlier civilization, the people civilization was the people who built their house on steel. Yeah. This statement also okay. This Surah Maryam ayat 24 also quite impressed me because the house of Maryam actually on steel above the river. This is quite impressed me also because this talking about our region, because only on this region we can find people who built house in on steel. Yeah. Okay. So this is studied by Anand Krishnan that he said Sundaland is the Induk Peradaban Dunia. I think a lot of debate on this. Yeah. So I can say that according to this this indication. Yeah. Okay. Now we are here in the pink era, the modern era actually. Yeah. During the traditional era or traditional or vernacular era, whereby people have contacts with the environment. Yeah. Have contacts with the God, so that when they design their house, they always refer to the context of human nature and God. Yeah, this is what was happened during the vernacular era. What happened now? After the 20th century, people refuse to accept culture, environment, and religion in their architecture, in the design of architecture. This is what happened. This is what was happened. Yeah? So people always think how to overcome all those issues. Yeah? All people always come, but to me, I'm looking for the question mark there toward the national identity in architecture. Maybe this will be the solution for our architecture. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to discuss this. Okay. The religion of Malay. Yeah. Okay. This is quite impressed me also. From the Ustad Muhammad Abdullah Al-Amin. He found in the Russian State University, he found that there are 13 manuscripts of all Malay, using the language of Malay, with the writing of the script in Palava. Yeah. So this is actually is a book of it's a perundangan book. Yeah, it's a perundangan book by following the Nabi Ibrahim, the Syariat Nabi Ibrahim alaihissalam. Yeah, so meaning that the Malays before the Islam came, the Malays already applying the Syariat by Nabi Ibrahim alaihissalam. Yeah, and this is quite very long time. Meaning that Malay always referring to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala while applying all those their activities. Yeah, okay. So this is the similarity with a sort of Nabi. Okay, this is quite interesting also. Yeah, if you notice the shirt of Prophet Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also just like the shirt that usually Malay wear here. They have KK and Pesa. Yeah, the shirt has KK and Pesa. Also the blouse for Sayyidina Sayyidah Fatimah. Yeah, the blouse has KK and Pesa, similar to the Malay costume. Yeah, so maybe this costume has similarity with the Malaysian one. Yeah, okay. Very interesting also for the research. So then now I'm going for search for identity. I'm like very much when the student in your universitas the student from the promotion so this one of the student did mention why we need identity in architecture. Yeah, because according to him, identity a must for every people, for everyone. Yeah, that's why now I'm portraying the personal identity of myself. Yeah, so identity actually is a very important for the people. So according to Luqman Zek, identity can be divided into three, which are personal identity, ethnic identity, and national identity. Yeah, okay. For personal identity, same ethnic group, they will strive and struggle to express their own personal identity. From the picture, we can see even though they are wearing, we call it here baju Melayu, yeah, baju Melayu, but with the color, with the style, with the design, yeah, they portray their personal identity. What about this one? Variety of ethnic group, they will fight for ethnic identity. Yeah.
Dr. Masto,
Yes.
still have a 5 minutes, please.
Oh.
Sorry.
I need to go fast. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. 5 minutes, okay?
Yeah. When someone in the universal group, they will fight for their national identity. Yeah. Okay. So identity for Malaysia, we already talk about it since 1957, since the formation of Persekutuan Tanah Melayu. Yeah, okay. So you see of this, all the athletes, they're wearing the same attire. Yeah, so this is what we call jati diri kebangsaan. Yeah, okay. So I have a lot of things to share, but unlucky, I have only a few minutes only. Concept of national architecture identity, atau gagasan seni budaya dan kebangsaan. Architecture identity meaning that as a rebranding approach on production of good architecture. Yeah, this is what I'm doing now. And in fact, I myself and Prof. Said in the board of architects, we are looking for this actually. Yeah. Okay, in Malaysia, before this, national architecture identity been looked by different approach. One, natural identity. The second one, artificial identity, and the first one, the third one is forced identity. Yeah, but I'm interested to use the first one, value of Malay heritage vernacular, as my approach on designing building. Yeah, to go forward to achieve national identity in architecture. So Malay vernacular architecture, this has been discussed a lot of time. Yeah. So Malay architecture is very good, very have a nice looking. Yeah, this is the type, the masjid and surau around the Malay archipelago. Yeah. So so I want to share also, because you see, if you look at the Malay Peninsula, can be divided into three regions: the north, center, and the south. Yeah. Okay. The north, the earlier kingdom of the Malay, the Malay Peninsula of Semenanjung Tanah Melayu, yeah, Kedah, Perak, and Kelantan. Yeah. Then after that, followed by the center region. Okay. This is the character of architecture that been developed by the earlier kingdom. Yeah, we can see in Kelantan, Kerajaan Tanah Merah, situ how they develop their architecture. Then in Kedah, they have all kerajaan, all kingdom, Kerajaan Langkasuka. They have different kind of architecture, and also in Perak, Kerajaan Gangga Negara, they have different kind of architecture. So after that, this is the palace, the Istana Balai Besar still around. If you go to Kota Baru, Kelantan, you can still can look this architecture. This is another part of architecture of Kelantan. Okay, this is very interesting to me. The internal region of Malay Peninsula. Yeah, you can see most of the architecture, Rumah Warisan Terengganu, Rumah Warisan Selangor, in Langkawi, Rumah Warisan Melaka, Rumah Serambi, Pahang, Rumah Warisan Kutai di Perak. It has similarity with the design of Rumah Warisan Makassar, Balai Lompor. Yeah, it has similarity. This is quite interesting to study abroad about this. Then
Okay, 1 minute, Doctor.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, at the southern region, most of the houses, as per discussed by Prof. Said just now, a lot of rumah limas, yeah. Okay, so this is all of my studies, yeah. Okay, I am to discuss with you my approach. This is why I choose for Malay vernacular house. This is has been discussed also with Prof. Said also just now. Okay, a lot of reason why I look for Malay vernacular house. After we study about the good thing about the Malay architecture house, so I already discovered the 42 principles that we can be used for modern design. Yeah, so from here, actually, I use my office actually as my laboratory to do the experiment to design the architecture. Yeah? Okay, this is part of the architecture that I designed following that 42 principles. Yeah, so so some of the design also they recognize, then they give me award. Yeah, some award in architecture, the gold award. So this is the building. I just recently I received a lot in German for the hotels in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah. So I'm also developing an indexation of national architecture identity. How to give index to grade the national identity. This is from my study with my student. So we got the idea, the pendapat tokoh. So from here we study. Then from the pendapat tokoh, actually we find the point mark on each score as follows. The society and culture, the tokoh given 45% marks. The environment and local context 25, architecture of genius local 25, and eco-friendly design 10. So this is the thing. that I developed to for the index. Yeah.
Okay,
So
thank you, Professor. We don't
okay.
have
So
any
I'm
more
also
time.
thank you. So
Okay,
this is also I use my student. I have student. I ask them to design, and they can value themselves. Yeah. About this one. Okay. As a final say, the next of Malaysian architecture development for looking on identity, always referring to the realm of design, yeah, lifestyle, culture, history, progress, dynamic, genius, local, etc. And also we need to refer to our context, the context of sustainability, the green, energy saving, respond to landscape, environment friendly, and of course, we cannot deny on the existence of technology, and we need to balance it. Yeah. So I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator. Thank you very much. So I call it a day for my presentation. Thank you.
okay.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much for the quite long presentation. Before we go into the questions, uh, I would like to highlight some notes that I got from the presenter. First, from the Dr. Teg Zain, he highlight about tradition and longhouse at Kalimantan. It's about a comparative traditional house and Kalimantan, also talking about typology and morphology of Kalimantan also today. And Dr. Zain also explained about how to suit with the environmental conditions, giving example of floatings on piles and also grounded housing. Dr. Zainal also explain about identifying local architecture of Kalimantan, how it depend on the local cultures, also the environmental. By the end is to fulfill basic needs. So by the end, by Dr. Tegzairin giving conclusions is about the traditional also is related with the faith, culture, architecture in local Kalimantan. Okay, that's a summary of from Dr. Tegzairin, and I would write about from highlight from Professor Dr. Syah Ahmed is about gender harmony in Malay building traditions, where this is the professor explained about perspective, tradition, and vernacular houses. Also explained about dualism in architecture, how to impact on the Malay architecture, how the dualism and also occurring in modern on Malay architecture. Professor also explained about variation ethnic and regions related to Malay architecture, conflict or organics, also anthropomorphic craftsman based on the woman centric. So this is the interesting what Professor mentioned about 5 elements of woman centric in Malay houses. So measurement, something like so on. Also talking about mom in Indonesia, we call also another word Indu, professors. So not always ibu, tapi something we say ibu, Indu. So woman is a real architect of the home and the house's life. Silence powerful influencer. So that's I get note from professor, and from the architect Dr. Mastor is based on his 30 years experience in study and research. He mentioned about a symbolic meaning in Malay architecture. It's also about architecture crisis, is such as elimination, suicides, failure, or modernism, bringing tradition principle to today's context. And Dr. Master also mentioned about a meaning architecture, how to develop of culture and time, progress, not, uh, and also mentioned about 4 factors, such as microclimates. Dr. Master also mentioned about the Malay and the Malay civilization. So talking about refusal on culture, environment, and religions. So by the end, Dr. Master mentioned about the identity actually is related to the context, re, real of desire and technology balance. So this is the highlight, a small note that I can got from the presenter. So I already got a few questions here, but I will start with a chronicle order. So I will start from the first question. Wow, this is for Dr. Zairin. lucky you. Number one, this from Andy Abida and so she gives two questions, three actually. One, in Kalimantan, many ethnic occupy over there. My question is any acculturation between each other, between the ethnic group, and what the community is prefer build is? You get it, Dr. Zarin? Okay, and the third question is from Abida is, sorry. Oh, it related to the Islam also. Okay, you can answer first, and then I'm going to the
Okay.
next question.
About the acculturation. The acculturation is is related to the religion, to the faith of the both ethnicities. It is quite different in our daily communication. If we use the term of Malay, it is related to the Muslim, but if we use a term of Daya, it is related to non-Muslim people. So acculturation is quite. I think it cannot be connect between two ethnicities. So why maybe if you want to know about the people of Daya make a different kind of design of his house. Yes, they they they, they, they adapt the single house structure for their house, which is commonly found in Malay architecture. So the acculturation of their culture isn't found in this both communities, because it's quite different culture of Malay or Daya. This I hope it can be answer your question. It is what is the second question?
What the community prefer build is?
Yeah, currently they prefer to build a single house, especially in the Dayak people. While the Malays try to move from the traditional to a modern one, but they put adjustment by follow the room organization as they found in the traditional one. For me, in my vernacular house, my father, they, they use a large living room, large guest room, and a main sleeping room for my parents. While in my current house, I use a house in the ground with concrete material, but I put the arrangement of my space, my room into the need of my Malay culture. My wife's not is not a Malay, but he commonly comfort with the Malay culture. So I make a design on my house according to the Malay culture.
Before I give back to the someone who give the question, another question is raised related to the first question. Actually, is from Ria Wikantari. Is asking about, is there a kind of mixed house type, even by assimilation or acculturation, that are result from reciprocal influences between Malay and Dayak cultures?
Yeah, uh, as I said in the first question, acculturation on both cultures is, I think, is impossible to put on because they have a different culture, different habit, this different even of traditional culture, and they use a different material for their traditional event. So there is no acculturation. For example, Malay not allow it to eat pork by in vice versa. Dayak can eat pork. Malay cannot drink tua or alcoholic drink, but in the Dayak they can use it. They Malay cannot afford it to have a dog in their house, while in the Dayak they use dog to guide their house. So it is quite different. So I think the acculturation cannot be can be come to to both design of house, but we can live together. As I said, the people of Malay usually can come to the Dayak settlement. Uh, they also
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
okay.
Mhm.
There's a notification from the host. And then some Dayak people can live on the Malay settlement also. We can find easily in Pontianak, in other area of West Kalimantan. I hope that it can answer the question. And the main thing the acculturation maybe is the adaptation from this long house to the single house from the Dayak people. That's it.
Okay, so your basic question is cannot be until today. Okay, I got the basics answer. So next question is to Professor Said. Professor.
Yep.
Okay, there's a two question here. Uh, one is about whether part of home use human dimensions, and the second question is asking about the dualism. Is it a dualism or opposing, something like that? So basically, the
Yeah.
question in this question, you need to explain more about the human aspect on the human dimension in the house, and also dualism in the house. Actually, it is dualism gender rather than opposing, something like that. Or we can explain more, please, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator Johannes. Basically, it's not about opposing or complementary. It is actually both.
Okay.
There are times they oppose each other, but there are times they complement. In the case of a house building, there are so many complementing agenda going on because, like the nest of the tempur is about the collaboration between the male and female birds that make the house, the nest or the home for them. So equally in this Malay house, uh, I observe the complementing roles between the male and the female. It's just that the presentation, I made it in such a way that highlighting the woman, even though the title is gender harmony, I did not highlight the men because the man has been mentioned elsewhere many times. So I decided to silence on the man, but emphasize on the woman, not to say that the woman is opposing the man, but to highlight what has not been highlighted before. So, but the fact of the matter is that they are complementing in many aspects of the house, beyond architecture. In fact, in the living itself. Yeah. What other question?
It's talking about the human dimension on the house.
Okay, human dimension in the house. I have studied quite a lot on dimensioning. I'm fascinated with the human proportion and the ratio and whatnot, and the ordering system. If you look at my doctoral studies, doctoral research, I'm focusing on the ordering system of the traditional houses. So anthropometric and ergonomics are basically one of the major components that contribute to the dimensioning, the measurement of the architecture of the house. Why the timber size is like that? Why it's not bigger than that? Because during those time, most the craftsmen use their bare hands, usually assisted by an assistant, one or two the most. They use their bare hands. No mechanical means, or very, very less, very, very little mechanical means. Instrument are all handheld. So they must design a building that fits with their ability to carry, ability to hold. So that's why the sizes are all about the same dimension. If you do any bigger than that, then you need to seek the helps of other means, machine or elephant, to help to erect the house. So for ordinary houses, they use handheld technique. So the size I look 4x4, 4x2, and things like that, or 6x6. And the dimension of the Srambi I mentioned earlier, the length and the width are very much greatly influenced by the ergonomics factors of the dining tray and the arrangement during the serving of the foods during the kenduri. So it's very close relationship. I think I hope I have answered the question to Ibu Ria.
Okay, I will continue later, but I get a lot of question now coming up. So the third question to Dr. Master. Dr. Master, there's a question about Islam's influence on Malay houses in the past and today. Could you explain this more about this? How the Islam
Okay.
influenced on Malay architecture?
Okay. Thank you, Bapak Johannes. Actually, it's not only Islam, because since Malay before the Islam also, they practice the previous Sharia by the previous prophet. Meaning that Malay before attending to Islam Sharia, they are also as practicing on mentauhidkan Allah Ta'ala. Yeah. So meaning that even though before the Islam era, before the Islam era, Malays has designed their house according to I can say that mentauhidkan Allah Ta'ala. Actually, to me, from what from my studies, my observation, yeah, the Malay house actually is look like a manuscript, look like a living manuscript on performing on the I can say here mentauhidkan Allah Ta'ala always, yeah, always. Okay, so Allah Ta'ala said, you want to know me, then you look what I have done according to Allah Ta'ala. Meaning that nature, people from Minang said that alam berkembang menjadi guru. Meaning that the environment, the setting out, this universe actually being a teacher for us. This is what been Allah Subhanahu wa Taala been designed this universe for us to be teacher for us. So that's why Malay, when they design their house, they look for on the human, first on the human, the best creatures. That's what Dr. Said mentioned just now. Why Malay following the size of human, the size of human as an agronomic and anthropometric and agronomic, because people who are going to stay in the house, yeah. So that's why Malays, they look for the environment. When they stay in the region of a lot of raining, a lot of sunshine, they will design the house according the environment that given to them. Yeah. So that's why if they live in the area a lot of flooding, just like Kalimantan. I went to Kalimantan, Dr. Zairin. So I saw most of the building of the house there on stairs, on the pile. You're drawing on the pile. So it's happened here also in Malay Peninsula. Yeah. Why our descendant they built their house on stairs. Yeah. So when I discover in the Surah Al-An'am ayat 6, So this is make me more what so make me more interested to study about this Malay architecture. Yeah, because Allah Ta'ala did mention in the Quran, among the earliest civilization was the people who built their house on steel. Yeah, so to me, on-site construction, there's also a question, yeah, what is the best element to portray the identity of architecture, Malay architecture? I think it's on-site construction, yeah. Then another thing is a modular, yeah. Okay, how Muslim integrate, how Malay integrate Islam in their house design, yeah. I'm not quite sure in other region, but in the Malay Peninsula, the orientation of the house, they're pointing to the Qiblat, easy for them to perform their prayer, yeah, and also for them to set their sleeping bed, yeah, okay. But then another thing, for Malays in Malay Peninsula, they locate the orientation of the house, they locate the rumah dapur, the kitchen at the sunrise. Then the rumah ibu at the sunset. Yeah, then this one is understandable. When you go to vernacular Malay house and you want to perform solat, then you know the orientation. You no need to ask them. Yeah, you need to ask them. You know already where's the orientation of the Qiblat. Yeah. Then another thing, just now Dr. Said also did mention about the privacy. I think Dr. Zari also did mention about the separation between muhrim and non-muhrim. So that's why in the Malay Peninsula vernacular house, yeah, you can find there are always two access. Yeah, the male coming from the serambi, the front serambi, and the female entering the house from the side of the serambi to the kelek anak, to the jemuran, or to what selang. They have many names. Yeah. Okay. So in the house design itself, has separated between the male and female. Yeah, I think this is very Islamic. Yeah, they is separated between muhrim and non-muhrim. I think did I answer your question, Mr. Bapak Johannes?
Okay, as you already mentioned about the elements and also ornaments, so I want to connect to another two questions more. The question is about basically what is the most important to be preserved to maintain the identity of Malay architecture? The most important.
Okay.
First, and the second is related to with the wood carving of Malay architecture. How to preserve it actually for the future. So this talking about the elements and also about wood carving. Please, Dr. Master.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Johannes. Okay, so first, the most important, I already discovered there are 42 principles. Yeah, but to me, among all those principles, the most important element to portray the characteristic of Malay architecture is on-state construction. Yeah, because on-state construction, just like what been mentioned by Dr. Said, Malay architecture always referring to the human as the proportion of the human have capital, body, and leg. Yeah, for those house without the leg, in here in Malaysia we call it kudung, kaki. No leg mean kudung. The disabled already. So that's why Now, even though in my when I talk to my student, yeah, on-site construction is the main elements actually to portray the identity of local architecture. Yeah, another one is the modular system. That's why you can find rumah ibu, we call it here then rumah balai, no rumah anak I think. I'm not sure in Kalimantan, rumah ibu, rumah dapur, that's the basic. We call it rumah ibu. If the rumah ibu has rumah and also rumah dapur, we call it rumah bujang here. Yeah? Then if the member of the family the increase, then they will add another module. Then they call it rumah balai. In here we call it rumah balai or rumah tengah or whatever. They can name it differently. Yeah. So then the family increase, then they increase the number of the module. Yeah. So quite interesting also here, Bapak Johannes. Yeah.
Yes.
The house can be dismantled. Yeah.
Yeah.
The house can be dismantled according to the module. Yeah. Usually in here, what been practiced in the Malay Peninsula, the different module can be it's a wasiat actually to the dusan. Yeah, maybe rumah ibu for the eldest one, rumah dapur for the youngest one, rumah balai for the others of the son. Yeah, so when they married, they will dismantle the module that belong to them. Yeah. Then I'm not sure in Kalimantan, in Malay Peninsula, they still practice usung rumah. They move the module. Yeah. If they need to remove to the house further than the village or the region, they will dismantle. This is why rumah Malay vernacular house, they don't use permanent fixing. They didn't use metal nail. They use dowel, so easily can be dismantled the house. Yeah. So for me, if the modern architecture can be built on scale by modular, and if possible, can be dismantled and erected at to be erected at another place, I think this is good enough to be to represent the sustainability of Malay architecture.
Okay, for the next question about the wood carving, how about that?
The wood carving, the sustainability of wood carving, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. This is depending on the pattern actually. Depending on the pattern, yeah? Pattern of the project, the client of the project, yeah? I have a friend who is, we call it here Adi Guru Ukiran, the master carver. Master carving, yeah? We call it here Adi Guru. Okay. Right now in our country, there are also projects that people still want the carving works to be in their building. So that's why until now, my friend Adi Guru, he has a lot of work to be done actually. Yeah, of course, with the help of machine. Yeah, the help with the machine to prepare the earlier stage, so it will speed up the productivity of the carving work. Actually, carving work still a demand actually in our country. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Master. So
Yeah.
I would like to give a question actually for the three presenter, but I will start from Professor Said actually. So this is the tricky question actually, and also I'm waiting for this one. How actually the modernism the modernism influence on the Malay architecture, how we can use to preserve the Malay architecture in the same time. So this is the basic question actually. What do you think about this, Professor Sid?
Okay. Thank
Modern
you, Pak
influence.
Johannes. That is very interesting question and very relevant one. You
Yes.
are talking about addressing the context of the present and, of course, the future.
Yes.
One aspect about culture, apart from a definition, culture is also by nature dynamic. For a culture to remain exist, it must absorb and willing to adopt changes. Otherwise, it will soon die off, vanish. We have seen many culture of the world stated very strongly in the history, but no longer in existence. So if we want to maintain the culture, want to preserve the culture must be willing, voluntarily adapt and adopt. I give you an example, the situation that we are facing. The contemporary world, for example, in Malaysia, uh, in the next 10 years, about 80% of the population will live in the city. Just imagine the demand of housings for the population in the city. Of course, this issue has been faced by people in Jakarta, in Jawa, highly populated area in the world. So when we are dealing with that situation where the price of land is very high, we do not have the luxury of building a rural type houses. So most of the model of houses that I refer to in my slides are basically rural type houses, individual built or communal built, one family, one unit. If you are talking about the nation to move into urbanization with 80% of the population living in the city, we need to deal with the situation high density living. So high density living give you a different dimension in dealing with architecture is compared to the rural context. So in that case, we must relearn and unlearn about creating architecture, still about preserving or upholding the identity of the locals. This is where if the traditional craftsman live until today, he would also probably be addressing the present context, the existing context, the changes of the technology, the new material that coming, and in fact, the culture. I give you an example, the long house, the long roof house that I show in my slide as the basic, the most simplest one. Those belong to the earliest type. The latter type are actually more of a limace type. And the space between column, floor height and the roof height, the ceiling height is greater. So this allow bringing in modern furniture into the house as compared to the house that I show to you on the slide. There is only good proportionate for sitting on the floor, cross-leg. There is no furniture in the traditional houses. I mean, there is no modern furniture in the traditional Malay houses. It will look awkward if you bring furniture into the space. But then the house being adopted and adapted to allow furniture to come into the house. So those are slight changes that occur within the few years in the past that I have somewhat witnessed. But how about into the present and in the distant future? So to designers, to architecture school, training architecture students, producing future architects, the task that lies ahead within our hands is how to train our students to produce graduates who are capable in interpreting in translating the essence of the past, the principle of the past, and to be applied in the modern context, in the contemporary context, in the future context. We must recreate, reproduce the new architecture. This is the most challenging part. I would say it would be very unlikely that we will be reproducing traditional architecture. We don't even live in that kind of architecture. We live in an environment that suits our modern living. So our students must be guided so that they can take up the challenge. There are so many great architects produce method that we need to study how they translate and link between the past and the future. This is the, to me, most exciting parts. I'm looking forward to see members in the academic to pursue these things. I know that some architects in the practice have tried themselves, but there are so many space and time for us to explore the possibilities.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So, what I heard from your quite explanation actually is it's all about adapt. That's important, and also how we training the young architects to interpret the essence for the future. So, that's very good answer actually. And now I'm going to the Mr. Zairi, because you in answer the question is you get more complex because you have to combine two different cultures there, Daya and Malayu. So what do you think? How
Yeah.
you how
Yeah.
you interpret this modernism?
Yeah, people can adopt the design of those traditional architectural of both ethnicities. Mm. To adapt, you can use the stage house. It is important because flooding condition always suffer in most West Kalimantan, especially in the riverbank of river in West. The second element to adopt is the huge space of roof construction, because the environmental condition in West Kalimantan is high temperature, uh, high high debit of rain, and the condition of changing of climate. So the high slope is very important to the design of the roof. And the most important is about the culture. The culture of Malay is different to the non-Malay, especially for the non-Muslim. So the room arrangement, room organization in the Malay blueprint is very important to make differentiation, segregation, uh, uh, yeah, for the non-mahram guests to uh, the member of the house, the host family, the family of the house. I do agree to the Dr. Mastor said before. Usually we have two two doors for the incoming of person. Usually for the female guest, usually knocking the door on the front house. Then we had the side entrance. Usually a female can knocking the door on this in this place. I use this design to my house. I have two doors. One in the one direct to the guest room, and then one other direct to the living room. So this is the way I would like to save my wife and my daughter activities inside the room, because in Malay we have to aware about the hijab. So I usually in the condition of uh, inside of the house, we have to prepare on this matter. And another thing, it is hard to adopt is the high volume of window and high volume of door. it is quite hard to adopt, because we are living in the urban area. So in the urban area, we have lack of land to build a house. But I do agree to the professor said that in the urban we can use like a condominium or a apartment. But I think we cannot adopt all the design from the West, because the West say that the main the main the main room in the front is the kitchen, as we usually see in the apartment. But in Malay, we usually put our kitchen on the back of the apartment, the house. So we can put the arrangement and the West arrangement of house to the Malay or Dayak arrangement organization of the house. I think this is a good suggestion that Professor said mentioned before. I do agree. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for the answer. You highlight on the preserve values, forms, physical aspect, and also fit with the context. So the last, I think I need to respond from Dr. Masura. How actually, how to you to highlight modernism, the influence of modernism on traditional vernacular architecture, based on the what you said before about the context, technology balance, something like that. Please, Dr. Masra.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Johannes. This is I'm just sharing what I'm being practiced on producing architecture. Okay, of course, I agree also with the Prof. Said just now. In the modern era, not many of us willing to stay in a vernacular house. Yeah, because our culture already moved. Yeah, as I shared in my presentation, architecture always governed by 4 factors: climate, environment, uh, culture, and genius loci, the ability. Yeah. We know that culture and environment is the fixed thing. Wherever we go, the things always fixed. Yeah. Then another 2 things, the culture and ability or the genius loci. This is something that growing through times. Culture is something that grow. Of course, the ability, the technology also is growing, following the development of culture. Okay, since architecture need to portray these 4 things. Yeah. Okay, nowadays people are talking about sustainability, about the green. Yeah, this is to resolve on the 2 things just now, 2 factors, which are climate and also environment. This to resolve. This is to resolve on the issue of climate and environment. They are using the approach of sustainability. Many peoples, many countries, they are talking about, they are doing research, they have the index, how to achieve the green index or the sustainability index. But another 2 things, this is something that develop, something that growing, the culture. Yeah, of course, the current culture is very much different from the previous one. Yeah, the Malay culture, but of course, the Malay also, they still practicing their custom, their behavior, their religion. Their religion still remain as a Muslim. Our culture, our custom as a Malay, yeah, even though we are adopting the modern culture, yeah, of course. So that's why I'm looking for the issue on the climate and environment. So that's why I'm looking that 42 principles already derived. 42 principles to be used in a design. In fact, I'm sharing with my students as well to apply these ideas of these 42 principles, how the idea or the value of the Malay vernacular architecture can be used for designing the modern architecture building. Yeah, the values. I mean that we use only the values because the character and style always represent region. Yeah, character and style always to become identity to a region. Yeah, okay. So that's why when you talk about the identity of region, again example in the Malay Peninsula, you go to the northern part, we have different style of architecture being produced by Malays. At the central region, you can find different character and style. The southern region as well, you can find different kind of region. Yeah. So from my study, I already discovered it's nearly hundreds of typologies of Malay vernacular architecture in Malay Peninsula itself. Yeah. So meaning that style and character determine only the region. Yeah. Style and character determine only the region. So that's why we cannot, sometimes it's not right to borrow the character of other region to be our style. Yeah. Okay. So every region, they should develop. Every region, they should develop their style of architecture. They should sustaining the old one and develop, become the new character. The new character, but of course representing the region where the architecture being designed, being produced. Yeah, Bapak Johannes, I think the most important thing to me, what I practice, I look on the values of Malay vernacular, then apply in the modern context. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, for, Doctor, for your answer. So, because of time, I still have one question. This is the question for the Prof. Said and Dr. Zairin. So, this is the question. Some people said that the house is like rumah ibu, or in other words, we here call rumah induk. Is it similar? But in fact, the people also add some space there or add some small building over there. Then they call that another term. So it's like rumah anak or extended space, something like that. So this is something quite new actually, because in our culture, mostly in Asia, we more very close with the extended family rather than the nuclear family, the concepts. So sometimes they say that this is rumah ibu and this is rumah anak. Whether the definition sometimes is very confusing. Sometimes is the rumah anak is like just extended, or something like something a different was but very close to the rumah ibu, something like that. So this is a new actually, but this has happened in our community. So based on your opinion and your experience, Prof. Said, could you explain to us, for all of us, what the meaning of this one? Thank you. You still unmute, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Bapak Johannes.
Yep.
Okay, first let's look at the extended family. This has been practiced traditionally across the region,
Yep.
especially in the Eastern culture. And there are so many good things about extended culture. Nobody have experienced becoming father and mother at the first time they got married. That is their first experience. They're also learning. So rather than opting for trial and error, so there's someone, the wiser person next to you to look after you when times in need. So that's the beauty of extended family. But urbanization somehow at many time making extended family not possible due to the congestion and the density that I have spoken earlier. So extended family being seen as things of the past. I know they are still being practiced in the suburb area, but no longer in the high density area in the city. One good things about traditional architecture is about extendability. So it can be extended almost endless. Some houses being seen as very long to the back or expanded a bit to the left and right to represent the rising needs, because house is also a manifestation of socioeconomic status of the family. So the more the family grow, they extended, the house get bigger. But at the same time, like architect Masto earlier mentioned, a house is also inheritance, is something to be handed down to future generation. So I have seen several houses during my past studies, my past research, that's being broken up into pieces. I mean, into components. The rumah ibu taken by the eldest members of the family, and the dapur taken by the youngest female children in the child in the family, and so on and so forth. The beauty of that is that the meaning and value of the house is being spread over throughout the village, not only limited to the nucleus house. So meaning that when I look at it, because of the adaptability and the flexibility, the construction mentioned by architect Masto earlier about using dowel can be disassembled and reassembled, transported. That is the nature, the organic nature of the structure. So to see the house as something static is somewhat not correct, because it was designed to prepare itself for any eventuality, into adapting to the changes, into the challenges of the future. So then the house is ready for whatever, whether it is remaining as a nucleus family or extended family, or even when they distributed the wealth, the inheritance of the house into other members of the family. Bapak Yohanes?
Okay, Professor, thank you for the explanation. I can agree more about that. So it's also happen in here in Riau, because we also Malay, Sebila. So for Dr. Zairin, I think you have your own answer about the rumah induk dan rumah anak. Please share to us.
The term about the rumah anak and rumah induk, rumah ibu in Malaysia is term of the biggest to the lowest in the composition of the structure. But in the condition of the
Hello. Hello. Dr. Zairin. Host. Hello. Host. Could you contact?
Maybe Dr. Siren,
Disconnect.
yes,
Dr.
maybe.
Zairin. Ah, I see. Dr. Zairin. I will wait 10 seconds.
yeah connection problem, I think. Okay.
Actually, in here, in yes, Dr. Zairin. host. Could you contact
Yes,
him? Yeah, Mr.
yeah.
Zerin.
Dr.
Is clear?
Serin, bandwidth is low, sir.
Okay. So, everyone, especially for this
Hello.
presenter. Hello.
It is clear?
Yeah. It's okay. No
Okay.
need to show your face, just your voice. It's
Okay.
okay.
Okay. I will try to answer. Yeah, according to the room composition, room organization, the room inside the house only to female children. Where the male children usually they live on outside of the house. Sometimes they live on the surau musola or mosque out there. Yeah, this is the thing that very important that still commonly used on the modern house. Usually, female who married to the someone will live on the rumah besar, rumah emak, rumah ibu, and then the male usually move from the house to live together with the together with his wife, and sometimes in the current condition of house design, they make some room that as a preparation of his daughter will marry in the future. So they put some some rooms as their next married living. But in the current condition is hard to have because a male his husband will leave the house to have a private single house by their own. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, similar notion actually with Professor. What Professor Zerin answers is also about extended and nuclear family as well. So I think this is time 3:51 in Indonesian time. Uh, I only have 3-4 minutes left. So for this last minute, I would like to thank for you all for to attend this webinar, especially to the Department Architecture of Universitas Negeri Makassar and Universitas Tanjung Pura for already organized this webinar. And also I would like to thank to the three presenters. It's very great. They present their material to us for. So the last sentence I think I would like to thank for all of us and keep healthy in this time. So by this I want to end my session. So assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I put back to the host. Please host, you can take it from
Waalaikumsalam
here.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Sir Johannes for getting this webinar. I also want to send a big gratitude to our guest speakers for bringing a great presentations and new knowledge to us. And also thank you very much for our participants to attend this webinar till the end. Ladies and gentlemen, we finally come to the end of this webinar session. Let me apologize to all mistakes and shortcomings that happened in this webinar, whether intentional or not. And before ending this webinar, let's we take a picture together. So please turn on your videos. Okay, we'll start taking our picture from slide 1. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, once again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, for slide 2, smile. 1, 2, 3. Okay, once again, slide 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next, slide 3. Smile. 1, 2, 3. Once again. 1, 2, 3. And for the last slide. 1, 2, 3. Once again, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. And lastly but not least, we want to invite you in our third session of this webinar series next week on Tuesday, 6 July 2021. So please contact our contact persons for more information. Now it is time for me to end this webinar. Once again, thank you very much for participating in this webinar and see you on our next event. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Pak Serin. Thank you, Prof. Thank you,
Hmm.
Pak Mr. Surat. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih. Bye-bye.
Pak Yohanes, thank you so much.
Record